Welcome to Becoming Powerhouse, where we discuss the tough lessons I've learned while taking my two companies from negative revenue to over 7 figures. We'll talk about the raw and vulnerable truths about being boss, as well as tips and strategies you can implement immediately for better business results. I'm your host, Nicholle Overcamp, the founder and CEO of Wilcox Financial Group and Powerhouse Coaching. You can see links and other resources in our notes. Don't forget to head over to herhousemoney.com to grab your free Her bundle for business and subscribe to our newsletter. Now, let's dive in to today's episode. Hello, my powerhouses. Our guest today is Stas Balanevsky. And if you are looking to have a grip on your business versus your business having a grip on you, he is your man. He is an EOS Implementer and has over 30 years of experience in helping businesses thrive, scale, make sure that you have the right butts in the right seats, and really build out a core leadership team so that you can live more life, have a lot less stress, and a business that is operating profitably and not draining the life out of you. No one wants to be in that position where you feel like you are busting your butt to just hit a brick wall year after year and not be able to get the kind of traction and growth and profit that you know your business deserves. So please enjoy my conversation with Stas and take all that he has to offer in value, tips, and advice. All right, my powerhouses. So I have Stas on with us today, and I am so excited for him to share his perspective. He is, you might be the third dude we've had on the podcast, and it's great. And the reason is I love, and anybody who listens or knows this about me is like getting as many diverse perspectives as possible, because there's so much value in that, in hearing those stories. And then importantly, you are the expert in literally growing businesses, but not growing them to the point of where everybody feels burnt out and chaos, but strategic growth so that we don't drive ourselves nuts. And, I think so many of us can relate to, we start a business, we're running like crazy, and then all of a sudden we feel like we hit a brick wall, and we have that moment of like, is this it? What do I do next? What can I grow more? I'm really tired, and I don't know what's next. And I think, Stas, that's where you come in. So welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the wonderful intro and welcome. Yeah, I mean, I have the privilege of, we always say I have the privilege of watching people play the game of business. And it's so hard for people to watch themselves play the game. That's why every sport has coaches.
Yep.
And that's what I do for entrepreneurs. And I get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of all of that. And you're right. It's, we were talking before that it's called running a business for a reason. It's not walking a business.
Mm-hmm.
And there are challenges, there are things you trip over, and you just got to keep on going, keep on swimming.
Yeah, that's right. And it's almost like actually running a business, but like a Spartan race with all of the obstacles in between that you're not really sure if you're going to make it or not. Are you there, by the way?
I am here, and
your screen just went black, but welcome back. Welcome back to the party.
Sorry about that technical problem. So a microcosm of running a business.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Never.
Perfectly. It's going great. Everything's ready. Lights are on. Everything's great. And bang, one of the screens goes out.
It's fine. Like Remy is going to start barking soon anyways. So that's,
Right.
Never fail.
That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
You just keep rolling.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep rolling, because you're going to slam into stuff. Guaranteed.
It's life, And so before we dive into, I've got some, I definitely want to pick your brain and take advantage of this, but you're an EOS implementer. And so it's the entrepreneurial operating system. And there's probably most of the people listening to this have no idea what the hell that is. And so I talk about it a lot. I actually just had a conversation with a client yesterday where they're really starting to think about succession, and but they said they've ran an L&M business their whole life, the lean and mean husband wife and their team, and now they're really looking for like, oh shit, like we can't actually pass this on because we don't even have a system, let alone, a playbook or any of those core things that you help usually like more, earlier in the journey entrepreneurs with. But, I'd love for you to explain, Stas, like what is it and why is it so significant?
Absolutely. I mean, EOS, like you said, the entrepreneurial operating system is really a way to harness all of that human energy around the leadership team table. So all 137 things that you worry about, we believe can be neatly compartmentalized into 6 key components of EOS. So the vision component is all about figuring out where you want to go and how you want to get there. Next, I'm sure you've heard it said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you have to go with people. So the second component is the people component, making sure you have the right people. You've heard it said before, the right people on the bus. So the right people that live our core values and are able to really deliver what their seat on the bus is supposed to deliver. Then the data component. We run businesses on numbers. We don't run them on guesses. We don't run them on hunches. We are data driven. Next is the issues component. All of these problems like my screen going out, any opportunities, anything you want to talk about with the leadership team, you put it on the issues list so that we're not disturbing each other during the day when we have important stuff that isn't urgent. Mm-hmm. Then the next component is the process component. It's the thing that allows us to scale. It's the thing that allows us to do great repeatable work. And I'm not talking about like, a rat hitting a feeder bar. I'm talking about the 20% of the process that gets you 80% of the way there. So you can still humanize the exceptional. And then the final component is the traction component, which is where, the rubber meets the road. And that is where you have rocks, which is a Stephen Covey construct. These are 90-day projects with a start and an end that make you better, faster, stronger. And then a meeting pulse, having properly quarterly, annual, and weekly level 10 meetings with your leadership team. And as the author of the book Traction, Gino Wickman, famously says, vision without traction is hallucination. Right?
Oh, isn't it though, right? Yeah, and one of the things that I like most about EOS actually is the 90 days, and having those shorter periods of time that you focus on, because I find a lot even, with our clients is that when you set these annual goals and then you're looking at it year long, you don't have these adequate touch points or smaller broken down into like these smaller pieces, it feels overwhelming. And then if you're not checking in weekly, monthly, quarterly, it seems that you're never able to accomplish what you want, or you blink your eyes. Ooh, there we go. Phone's connected to the computer. Perfect. You blink your eyes, it's just not going to be great. You blink your eyes and the year goes by and you're like, oh, shit, there we go again. Like I'm still running like a chicken with my head cut off, and why didn't something change? And so I'd love for you to just talk to the significance about the 90 days, if you could, but even how to think about that a little bit differently, because I find a lot of times that's sometimes where people get stuck in terms of like, well, what do I even do to break down these goals? And you said it earlier, the numbers, we focus on data and numbers tell a story. That's numbers are my jam. And but that's also the thing that I find entrepreneurs run from the most. And I think the time and the watch of that, two go hand in hand.
Absolutely. I forget who said it, but they said that we grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade and grossly overestimate what we can do in a year. Mm-hmm. It's a whole year. Like here we are sitting at the beginning of the year. Like, I don't have to start that. I have all this time. It's fine. The reason the 90-day sprint works is because we as humans allow our work to expand to the time allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So here's how I coach my teams. 90 days is 13 weeks, right? Super simple. You create a project and you have 1 week to quote unquote smart it. You know the acronym, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, right? Your time boundary at that point becomes 12 more weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The measurable is what, is the number or the thing that we're going to know we're done with.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that done, then you're looking at 5 2-week sprints. So I take whatever goal and I'm like, all right, how do I whack this into 5 manageable bits?
Yeah.
So I whack it into 5 2-week sprints. It still gives me the flexibility to be an entrepreneur. I'm not being told what I have to do every minute of every day, but I have deliverables to myself. And then, because I'm sure you're doing the math, you're like, okay, that's a week to plan. That's 5 2-week sprints. That's 11 weeks. Where's the other 2? That's my shit happens buffer, because it always happens. So if you don't predict for stuff going wrong, when it goes wrong, your rock is off track, it doesn't get done, and it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You predict. And then with the weekly check-ins, those level 10 meetings in the traction component, one of the sections of that meeting is the status of your rocks, where you declare your rocks on track or off track to your leadership team. On track means I am sure I'm going to deliver it. Off track is anything but. So I hope, fingers crossed, all of those are off track. And then the team can help you. The team can say, like, what, all right, you're off track. What's going on? Nicholle, I need that thing that you have that I need to finish the rock. You're like, no problem. I'll take it to do. I'll get it to you. Does that solve you? Like, yep, if you get it to me, that'll solve me. The next week, I declare the rock on track and we're off to the races.
Yeah, love it. And it is like this forced improved communication system where that's a lot of times where stuff gets stuck and teams make too many assumptions or they're afraid to ask, and real traction happens when you're talking about those obstacles, right? And how to move forward. And so the system just helps do it for you and makes it really simple, because how many times, and you've probably done this yourself, Stas, where you set a goal, but then you don't actually think about, like, specifically, okay, what are the habits and behaviors that I need to do every single day to actually make that happen? And those are sometimes the balls, or maybe I should say rocks, that get dropped most, because we say what we want, but then we run really fast and we don't feel like taking time to actually figure out how with the team, because that's the painful part, at least for me as an entrepreneur. Like, it is the part that I hate most, like planning, taking time to train people, taking time to talk about things, the really important things that actually get shit done and move the needle towards the goals that I want. Like, hate it, because it feels like it's taking away from, like, my zone of genius and what lights me up. But then I have this, like, tug of war of, like, oh my gosh, like, I just don't have time to do it, which is a big excuse, of course. But how would you talk to that? And for those business owners who are like, yeah, I know we have these issues, but I'm running full steam ahead, and doing everything that you just said sounds like really overwhelming, and I don't think our team has capacity and time for that.
Yep. Old Zen proverb, if you don't have 20 minutes to meditate every day and you're too busy, you should meditate for an hour every day. You just have to prioritize. This is, I don't know what your position is on broccoli, but this is like the broccoli of business. I'm not a fan, but you have to do it. And when you do, it's incredible. The other thing that it helps with when you talk about a leadership team is speaking truth to power, right? One of the tough things is, like, if I'm on your team, like, you're Nicholle, like, you don't get a to-do done. I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, can you get your stuff done? No, you're my boss. Whereas this system automatically pops it up and says, you're off track. What's going on? It's more of a how can I help conversation versus a let's have an accountability conversation with your superiors.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, sometimes you just have to get your head wrapped around the fact that if you don't fix this, you will always be doing this thing. I have a friend who was just dragging his feet on getting an executive assistant. And I finally said, buddy, you will be licking stamps for the rest of your life if you don't get someone else to do it.
Yeah.
He's like, and he texted me later. He's like, every time I look at a piece of mail, I think of that comment. And he did. He went off and he got someone, and she's awesome. But it was a lot of work, and it was at the expense of something.
Oh, yeah.
I have this awesome chart that I use that I call it the barbecue chart, because the X and Y axes intersect at low and slow. So that's how you cook barbecue, right? So the vertical axis is from low to high, which is impact. Horizontal axis is from slow to fast. So if you look at upper right, that is super fast stuff that has a super high impact. The lower left stuff is super low impact and it takes a very long time. And what I do is I use Post-it notes and I kind of put them into this matrix. So you sort of have the relativity of two projects. Like, wow, this is actually a little bit higher and a little bit lower. You know, this one is a little slower, a little faster. And you have this mess of Post-it notes. But then what you do is you draw a diagonal line from the upper left to the lower right. That triangle, the lower, slower stuff, that is your zone of no.
Love it.
Post-it note that is in that triangle, forget it. You don't have time. It's not high enough impact on your business. The rest of the stuff, those are your rock candidates. Those are the things. The really high upper right, super high impact, super fast, like putting your phone number on your website. Let's go ahead and get that done.
Yeah. And it takes 5 seconds.
Right.
Yeah. No, I love that. And the visual part of it, love. You know, we actually do that all the time. I always have shit all over my walls just to, you know, to see that and then the impact of it and get everybody driving on the same, you know, bus. I was gonna say it's team, but you know, whatever. You get the point. Super cool. And I think what happens a lot of times is we're constantly getting overstimulated and things thrown our way that without doing that, you don't even know what to say no to and recognize all of the distractions you're saying yes to that are actually standing in your way. And, you know, what I've learned over the, you know, 15 plus years I've been at this, which is terrifying, by the way, you know, I used to be like the bottleneck. It was me. Like, hi, I'm the problem. It's me. What song is that? You know? And now it's cool because working through this, like my team like knows they have this permission, regardless of how much I don't want to hear it, to just like call me out on my shit. Like, don't tell me yes all the time. Or if I'm not being clear, like, let's talk about it. Let's do that. You know, and in this system, to your point earlier, like authorizes that. And then doing the visual, we have a similar system that we do each quarter. And putting all the stuff on the wall and hey, where do we focus? Where are we distracted? Like, it's just a really nice fine tuning. And I like using the numbers behind that. So, you know, like taking the priorities and saying, okay, like what is not our highest revenue producer, but what's the highest profit? What's eating the time? What does that look like? And so it kind of gives some cool insight to that too, again, where you don't always look at it that way, even though it sounds so simple. It's not always easy to take that break and break it all down for those different silos of your business.
That's so true. But one thing that I really want to lean into is something that you said, which is like the secret of success for all entrepreneurially run companies. You have given your team permission to call you out, quoting, to call you out on your shit.
Yeah.
That there's a continuum of psychological safety. And what happens in you are granting them the highest level of psychological safety. So there are 4 levels. One is inclusion safety. That is just freedom from harm. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The second one is learner safety. And that's where we start to get into exchanges. You will grant me learner safety in exchange for me actually learning. So you will teach me if I learn.
Mm-hmm.
If I stop learning, if I ask you for the 83rd time the same question, you're gonna be like, you can't be here, right? The next stage is, excuse me, is contributor safety.
Mm-hmm.
So the exchange there is autonomy in exchange for results. And that's where it really starts to hum, where you're like, listen, team, I absolutely trust you. You keep doing the thing that I know you can do. So I don't have to micromanage. I don't have to like watch you do the thing, because that's two people doing the thing, frustrating everybody, paying twice as much money, and it's terrible. And then sort of the summit of it all is challenger safety. And the exchange there is air cover for candor. You will never fire anybody for speaking truth to the greater good of the business. Like, Nicholle, I really need this thing, and it's super important, and you're really holding me up. And you're like, you know what? You're right. That's not you being mean. That's you speaking to the greater good of the business, because you can't move it, because the neck is always at the top of the bottle. So
100%.
kudos, because that, like, that's the thing. That's the trick. And people are like, I can't trust my people. It's like, well, what have you given them? Well, nothing. It's like, well, that's why you don't trust them.
Well, I think I heard it from Lisa Bialu, who, I was listening to her book, and Radical Confidence, which is really good. She's really funny. I actually never tuned into any of her stuff before that, but one of the things that she said, I repeat all the time, and she talks about being a leader and how essentially, if you don't like how something is going in your organization, it's your fault. Period. Whether or not it feels direct, and she was explaining the scenario about a situation with an employee and how she looked at it. And she said, okay, if this were my fault, how would I solve the problem? Because it's always that reverse engineering process of like, okay, along the line of command here, like it's a hard pill to swallow, but where did I lead wrong, or where did I fail to lead or have that openness? And so I think that it is definitely and it's a hard lesson I've had to learn too, just from being the last to know in certain situations, right? And that hurts, and shit. Stas, like yesterday in our team meeting, they told me something that was pissing everybody off that I was doing. And so it's like, I'm constantly trying to improve here. But I love that they do feel comfortable to tell me, because I do try hard to not piss them all off. Right? So,
it's super important, right? Because you do live you do live in a very important zone of genius.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to have you there for the greater good of the company. If we can have you in your zone of genius and doing none of the other stuff, we all win.
Yeah.
Big time.
Totally. And to that point, like I'd love to hear if you have like a company turnaround story that comes to mind, or a client that you've worked with, in the past, where you went in there and you're like, you guys are a shit show, but we're able to come out on the other side and some really cool lessons, maybe even that you learned along the way. I just love hearing stories where when everything feels so hard, but I'm a big advocate that like everything is always figure outable as long as you've got the right butts in the right seat, and people just give a shit, right? So, I know I tossed you on the spot there, but I'm sure you've got a few ideas that come to mind.
It's not like I look befuddled, because it's not like I'm looking for an idea. I have 83 of them in my head. And I'm like,
which one do I want to talk about?
Okay. So this one, we will call this one pretzels and a nap. Okay. This is the punchline to this story. So great business, family business, generational transition, boys bought it from the dad, right? Running the business pretty well, scaling the business, really wanting to scale. When it was dad's business, great business, profitable lifestyle business, but they wanted to really kick it up a notch, because obviously they're next generation, they have a long road ahead, and they're kicking the business up. And they started growing this thing because the product was spectacular, and they started growing it very quickly. When you get quick growth, you start to get cash flow constraints, right? Mm-hmm. Because you start to get all of this, money gets really tight. There's a lot more money out there. Everything is bigger. They're moving offices, they're moving factories, they're doing it multiple times. They're bringing in people that they think can do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And those people come in and there's questions about them, but they held on to them
Yeah.
because, well, I made this bet and they're going to hold on to this person. And then this person proves that they're the wrong person. That person leaves and they bring in another person. And that person makes moves that, they're kind of okay with, but kind of not okay with, but they're not digging in because like, oh, we have to let it go. But like that in their pit of their stomach, it's not right. And finally, we just had this conversation where I was like, you need to trust your gut. You need to be super slow to hire. You need to be super fast to fire. You need to just like not sweep anything under the rug. I'm not saying that you need to control it, but you need to run your business on numbers. You need to look at people that have accountabilities and hold them accountable. Don't let them have excuses. Have them come with ideas and do all of that. And, they've started doing it and they're doing it and doing it and doing it. And all of a sudden, this flywheel starts to spin. Revenue's up, profits up, everything's up. And all of the control that the founders or that the acquirers and the leaders had to have starts to dissipate. So I'm on a Zoom with the CEO of this company. And normally it looks like this, right? He's in his office, background's not blurred, it's all good. And I see he's wearing a t-shirt, he's reclined, his background's blurred. I'm like, buddy, are you home? It was like 10 a.m. He's like, yeah. I said, what's going on? He goes, my wife's traveling, kids are at school. I checked in with all the numbers and everything at the office is pretty good. He's like, I don't know. I think I might have some pretzels and maybe take a nap. I was like, could you have imagined?
Yeah.
Like he's a great friend of mine. I'm like, can you have imagined like 2 years ago on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. having pretzels and a nap? He's like, no. He said, I was finally able to let go, but I was finally able to let go to the right people. That's the breakthrough.
Yeah.
It's Who, Not How, which is an awesome book if you've not read it.
Love that book. Yes.
So when you get the right who's, it freaking unbelievable. And then you get to have pretzels and naps.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like, the dream, if you will, with a lot of us is it's like we're not, at least for me, and I know for a lot of my peers, we're not looking or super anxious about being able to retire, right? We love what we do, and retirement sounds like death, but it's the like, shit, it would be such a luxury to work 40 hours a week, right? It'd be such a luxury to be able to take a walk in the morning and go to work and not have fires and then leave early. Like, it's those types of things that sound really delightful to just not be in that like stress wheel of the grind all the time, like what fire is going to go out. And and a lot of again, peers of mine and clients, like their biggest thing a lot of the time is like the quote that you said, and I say it all the time: slow to hire, fast to fire. And I don't always follow my own advice. Like that was a huge lesson for me last year. Again, because history repeated itself a little bit, but it's the guilt. It's the guilt of like, oh my gosh, I made this person this promise, and then I have so much time invested in them that I think like maybe they're still coachable and maybe I'll try to work it out. And you're like constantly trying to work on the wrong person, square peg, round hole, versus just like, we also fail to forget that firing them is actually a favor to them too, because they can then go excel somewhere else, and it's not with you. And that I think for me has been, it always sucks firing someone, period, and it feels great after, but it sucks in the meantime. And going through that, and I question myself all the time, like, is this the right decision? Am I, who am I screwing over? Or I hold out on firing them because I'm afraid I'll stress my team out more because they'll have more work to do. And all those feels,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, heavy as the head that wears the crown, right?
Yeah.
It's your decision and you are. But the thing is, when you have someone that's just not a fit, you're hurting the entire company. So when you talk about the promise that you made, don't forget about the promise that you made to your team that you will never put with people that don't fit.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point, and it's a like a vulnerable place to put yourself in. And for me, I just try to look at like our core values, right? That's always my anchor. And like, man, like, am I really truly walking the talk and checking all the boxes here? Or is something feeling out of integrity? And it's not always linear, it's not always that obvious. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'd be curious here too, before we run out of time, what are some big themes that you find in terms of the difference between organizations and companies that you work with led by women versus led by men? And, I'd be curious to learn too, like for the organizations led by women, are there any things that they could pick up from some of your male leaders that would be very helpful, and I always love asking this question, because one of the first books that I ever read when I started the business, a mentor told me to read, it was Think Like Win Like a Woman, Think Like a Man, something like that. I'm screwing up the title, I think, but essentially it's like, man, like you need to think differently to win, but you can do it your way. So with that. Yeah.
So there's a couple of recurring themes. I'm just sort of going through, and it's not like that sort of pattern, what like women care more about their people and men care more about women. It's not that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's belittling and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
What the subtlety that I'm seeing is there is a lot less zero-sum game thinking in women-led organizations.
Mm-hmm.
For men, it's very simple, simple biology. If I kill this wildebeest, I get to eat the food. If you kill it, you get to eat the food, which means I get less food. There's a finite amount of food because it's one wildebeest, right? It's that zero-sum game. If I win, you must lose. The art of value creation from where there is no value to be had, or people can't see the value, I find that women-led organizations lean into that more and are more successful of, okay, we could probably negotiate, we could probably get an extra couple of points off of this deal, but let's think about this longer term, right? So I see a lot of that thinking. I see a lot more of that thinking in women-led organizations than I do in sort of your alpha male-led organizations that are just like, we must conquer. There is a couple, and I'm not talking about women that are pushovers that are like, okay, you can have whatever. It's not that. It's they tend to have a slightly longer view and tend to be a little bit more abundance minded in deal making. What's one thing that women can learn from men? Being unapologetic about pricing. Right? That is we have a term to art in EOS among the implementers is that's just head trash, right? So I have met a lot of female entrepreneurs. I've had the pleasure of mentoring a couple. They do not have as high opinion of themselves and therefore do not place as high a price on their output as what it should be. And they're like apologetic and all of these things where I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're worth X. Why are you at Z? And I get excuses.
Yeah.
I'm like, please, because here's the thing, like, men, I mean, we're basically 14-year-old boys pretty much all the time. And we just, especially the high quick starts of us, like I am, like you're a high quick start. We just try stuff, right? So male leaders can learn from women-led organizations to take a longer view, to have more of an abundance mindset, still want to be successful and win and all of that stuff. And then women can definitely learn from men to just be unapologetic about their pricing because they're worth it. And if you do run your company on numbers and you do see the return on investment that you provide to your customers, you will see that you are an absolute bargain for a lot of these people that need to increase their prices but are resisting. So
yeah, That is an amazing, I love everything you said, especially because that is something that I talk about a lot. And in the failure to recognize too, like the value in what how I convert it sometimes is like, if you charge more, you can actually help more people. You can pay your team more, you can do more in taking this different lens essentially versus feeling guilty or bad. I've heard a couple of times like, well, they can't afford it if I raise my prices. Well, that's not your burden to bear. Or your choice to make. Maybe they can afford it and you're making the wrong assumption, and they need to prioritize it. And so, you got to look at it as your bubble, your hub. How are you protecting your people? How are you supporting them? And you're providing this incredible value. So who are you not helping by keeping yourself small, or not recognizing your value too? So that, thank you for saying that. I think it definitely is a theme that I can agree with for sure. And I
Did I
struggle
lose you?
with it. Oh, did you cut out? Ah, you're frozen, Stas. There you go. You're
Yeah,
back.
you're frozen
Yes.
too.
You froze. Well, you know what? It's fine. I think this is like the fifth snafu that we've had. But truly, I was just echoing all the things that you said, and so glad that you brought it up because it
I'm
is,
getting like a word here or there.
damn it. Okay. Well, uh, is it better now? You're still frozen.
Well, I am super sorry that this has
Can you,
been plagued by a tech issue.
that's all right. Are you back now? Can you hear me all right? Oh, okay. You're not frozen anymore. You back?
No, it's so strict. Like the day of tech issues.
Fine.
I just switched things.
I'll try to have OE edit that part out. But I really just echoed all the things that you said before, and was just saying I'm glad you brought it up because it's something that comes up time and time again. And honestly, I can't think of a better way to end the podcast, and I really, really appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom and your 30 plus years of helping entrepreneurs thrive. I know I had to say the number because I made myself feel bad earlier. So,
Yeah. Misery loves company. Thanks, Nicole.
so any final message that you'd want to leave with the listeners on the podcast?
I do. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to have been asked, and this was an awesome conversation. And so thank you for all of that. The other thing is, I have a bit of a scavenger hunt for your listeners on my LinkedIn. So, with a name like Stas Balanevsky, I'm easy to find. So on my LinkedIn, connect with me. Let me know you heard me on the podcast. Within that, like on my LinkedIn profile, I have a Calendly link pinned called Help First Hours. So I have early morning hours, 7 days a week, reserved for anyone that wants to talk about anything EOS or business or entrepreneurship or whatever, because I know a lot of people, don't need the full sessions, can't afford the service, maybe, whatever, but I want to help as many entrepreneurs as I can. So hop on, schedule it. If it's open, I'll be there. And I look forward to helping any of your listeners with whatever they need. Because we talked about core values. Help first is our primary core value. And I love that. So if anyone wants help, needs anything, find my Help First Hours and book them.
That's incredible. And I hope that you guys take advantage of that because that is a wildly valuable gift. So thank you again. And we will put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. I am not leaving the spelling of your last name up to chance. So we'll put that right in there. And until next time, my powerhouses, continue to be courageous.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to Becoming Powerhouse. You can find all of the links to our site and resources in the show notes. Let's connect on Instagram at PowerhouseMoney, and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter at powerhousemoney.com. Remember, I want to connect with you. I want to hear your thoughts and help you with all the challenges you're having. So engage, send me a DM. And of course, if you're loving this podcast, let us know and go ahead and hit the subscribe button and leave a review.